Well, when my son and daughter-in-law first got married, and shortly thereafter, uh, they got pregnant. And during the pregnancy, they had some testing done, and they found out that their daughter had trisomy 13, which they say that if the child survives to full term, that typically they're going to pass away within a couple of hours, at most 2 days. Major birth defects at this point. So my son and daughter-in-law spent a lot of time in prayer, and they included his stepdaughter in the prayer to see what they should do, because nobody would ever blame them for having an abortion at that point, because the child was going to be so radically deformed at birth.
Hmm.
But in their prayer, they got, well, you know what? We want to bring this child all the way through, as long as God has this child to come through, and we'll just love her or him, whichever.
Hmm.
Sienna was born. She had major malformations. She had
Hmm.
6 fingers on each hand, and her hands were bent back outrageously.
Hmm.
She had incomplete formed skull.
Hmm.
She had cleft palate, or split lip, the whole bit, and I mean, she was not in good shape.
Hmm.
But from the minute everybody was in the hospital there with them when she was born, my brother, who's a doctor, and his wife, and our pastor and his wife, and my son's mother-in-law was there, and my wife and I were there with our youngest daughter, and we just spent a lot of time praying and loving on the little girl. And my son was holding her and just cooing to her the whole time.
Hmm.
And she went home. Well, the real God thing was that whole setup, because when they did the memorial service, they held it at the church that we go to, which is where my son and daughter-in-law went. And they have a lot of friends that were bikers and gang members, Muslims and Sikhs, and you name it, that were friends from before either one of them became a Christian. And the pastor started out his memorial service and said, I want everybody in this room to imagine going through your whole life and never hearing your parents say a cross word to you. Never being struck, never being lied to, never being cheated, no abuse of any kind, and then you go home and you're with Jesus. And everybody's sort of going, wow, that'd be kind of cool. He said, that's what happened to Sienna. From the minute she was born, her father never put her down, never stopped cooing and loving her. And she went home to be with the Lord. There wasn't a dry eye in the house, but there were a lot of people who were, the gospel spoke to them right then.
Hmm.
Wouldn't have happened the same way if it hadn't been for her being born and my son and daughter-in-law listening to what God had to say.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's a God thing.